In today's video, we'll be counting down 5 more insanely expensive minifigures. To quickly cover my parameters, I'm not including any excessively rare minifigures such as the Comic-Con exclusives. Rather, these are just regular minifigures available to the masses that have each proven to be expensive on the aftermarket through a combination of factors that I will do my best to explain throughout this video. I'd also like to say thank you for your comments that helped create this video. Number 5 comes to us from Ninjago, and it's Lloyd DX, or Lloyd as Garmadon likes to call him, selling for around $50. He was released back in 2015 as a Target exclusive in a minifigure cube that was free with LEGO purchases of $50 or more. Alternatively, guests could buy the cube outright for $15. If this sounds familiar, it may be because this is the same cube listed in my first expensive minifigure video that featured Superboy, one of the other minifigures included. Lloyd DX comes with 3 exclusive parts, his head, torso, and legs, and I must say that the gold dragon printing has a great shimmer to it. Lloyd was the last of the Ninjago minifigures to get a DX variant years after the others, and is actually not considered canon. Unfortunately, during the years between Lloyd and the other minifigures, the primary mold used for the ninja head wraps changed. This led to Lloyd DX not blending in perfectly with the rest of the DX series of ninjas with his different hood. I know that it would bug me having an entire set of minifigures with just one having a different hood, so while making this video my thinking was, well, why don't fans just switch out the newer head wrap piece with the traditional mold in green? Surely the traditional mold comes in the ordinary green color, right? And well, that leads us directly into our next half entry for the only 2 minifigures to ever actually come with that piece, the Green Ninjas. With both a man and woman, these 2 minifigures were released over 20 years ago in a 2000 minifigure pack for the Ninja LEGO theme. Along with the exclusive hood wrap, they also both came with exclusive torso prints featuring daggers and throwing stars, albeit in different places. The faces and legs, however, are not exclusive. Each of these minifigures sell for around $70 to $80 a piece. The original minifigure pack sold for $5, but was unfortunately a limited release, only available through Shop at Home and at a few LEGO stores. So for that reason, and because I've tied it so closely to Lloyd DX, I'm not counting the Green Ninjas as an independent entry on this list, so it's just a bonus. I wonder if anyone has actually ever taken one of those green hoods and put it on Lloyd to make him fit in with the rest of the Ninjago ninjas. Number 4 on our list is the Zombie Bride at $55 to $60. This minifigure was released in 2012 as part of the Monster Fighters theme in a set titled simply The Zombies. She is entirely exclusive, at least for now, as her ponytail in dark tan has never been released with any other minifigure, in spite of how widely used it could be. If I had to guess, that dark tan ponytail won't stay exclusive forever. However, I think it's safe to say that the rest of the minifigure will. The bride's face is particularly gory, and those dead and droopy eyes are just downright creepy. Given the groom, he isn't much of a looker himself, so I guess it's a good match. The bride's dress, both top and bottom, is unique, featuring her tattered gown. To me, this minifigure is a good example of how it's sometimes hard to predict which minifigures are going to be expensive in the future. She's great, but I don't think she's particularly outstanding, and LEGO has made plenty of other similar spooky minifigures over the years, most of which don't come close to matching the price tag of the Zombie Bride. For example, the Monster Fighters werewolf is arguably as cool and entirely exclusive as well, but only sells for a couple of dollars, albeit he was released in a smaller set. But to even counter that, if we consider the Franken Butler from the Haunted House, which sold for $200, he sells for less than half of that amount at only around $20 to $25. So all of this is just to say that sometimes there's no telling which minifigures will take off on the LEGO aftermarket, and the Zombie Bride is a good example of one that has shot up unexpectedly. SpiderMan is one of the most remade LEGO minifigures of all time, as the character has become an essential LEGO license. However, this minifigure based on Sam Raimi's trilogy from the early 2000s is where it all started. This is the first LEGO Spider-Man ever, and it now sells for $65 to $75. It debuted first in 2002 as part of the Studios theme, a line of sets that focused on action scenes from Hollywood blockbusters like Spider-Man and Jurassic Park, as well as behind-the-scenes elements of a production such as lighting and camera crews. The following year, the figure would return in 2 sets based on the original movie, The Origins, a set that tells the story of both Peter Parker and Norman Osborn becoming Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and The Final Showdown, featuring the climactic bridge battle between the two, with the life of Mary Jane hanging in the balance. The minifigure features great printing on both the head and torso, along with some great web printing on the hip hinge for the legs, a feature which has always been relatively uncommon for LEGO minifigures, but was especially so back in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, the figure doesn't feature any leg printing. What makes this minifigure's staggering price interesting is that it's a really recent phenomenon. Not even a year ago, this minifigure was only selling for around $10. I remember this personally as I lucked out and bought one at a local LEGO resale store for only $3. But I wanted to give evidence for this pricing as well, and online I had to look in unusual places, since eBay doesn't keep records that far back for sold listings, and Bricklink only goes back 6 months. Fortunately, I was able to find some listings from Reddit's LEGO market that shows how cheap this figure was. If you haven't already been able to guess why the price skyrocketed in such a short time, it's because No Way Home brought back Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, providing fans with a lot of nostalgia for the old sets, as well as being the only way to get a minifigure based on his portrayal of the hero. In the immediate aftermath of the movie's release, this figure, along with the dark blue Spider-Man 2 version, were selling for around $100 a piece. And in the months since then, the price has cooled down a bit into the 70-ish range, but we'll never see it again for as cheap as $10. For a couple of bonus facts, the dark blue version from Spider-Man 2 sells for around $55 to $65 and was originally available in 5 sets. Additionally, I'm stunned that LEGO hasn't made any sets based on the iconic scenes featuring all 3 versions of the Spider-Man from No Way Home. Since the release of the movie, fans have been begging for a Statue of Liberty battle set, which would be perfect for giving all 3. For number 2, we have Grima Wormtongue from the Lord of the Rings' biggest set, the Tower of Orthanc, released in 2013. He will set you back between 75 and 90 bones. In spite of his excessively high price, unlike other minifigures on this list, he actually only has 2 exclusive parts, his head and torso. Albeit, his head in tan is a standout piece, as it's one of the only minifigure heads to ever come in that tan color with a somewhat regular looking face print. Tan heads are generally uncommon, especially for faces that look relatively normal. The only other normal looking tan face is Commander Sato's from Star Wars Rebels, who is an expensive minifigure in his own right. Of course, other characters such as Emperor Palpatine and Barriss Offee have tan heads, but I wouldn't classify those as regular, as the one is an evil Sith Lord and the other has unique facial markings, so I can definitely see why Grima's head provides mock builders with a lot of uncommon possibilities. His legs are disappointing as they're only plain black, and his hair is used for other minifigures like Snake. He also comes with the old style cape in black. Overall, I think Grima is an example of a minifigure that is rare simply for rarity's sake, rather than him being such an awesome minifigure. A major factor of why he's so expensive is simply because he came in such an expensive set. But this does make him more rare, since fewer people buy $200 sets compared to ones costing $20. But if he would have come in, say, a $25 set, I doubt that anyone would care as much for him. For example, the Bjorn minifigure from The Hobbit is arguably even cooler than Grima, given that he has a uniquely molded head, an exclusive torso and leg prints, but he only sells for around $5, as he was originally released in a $20 set. Don't get me wrong, Grima's a decent minifigure, especially for that headpiece, but I don't think he lives up to his price at this point, and is probably only selling to die-hard Lord of the Rings fans that missed out on the Tower of Orthanc when it was available for sale back in 2013. For a bonus fact, the Saruman from the Tower of Orthanc is also quite expensive at around $40, as it came with exclusively printed robes for the legs, distinguishing it from the cheaper version available in the Wizard battle set that came with plain white legs. And for the number 1 spot on this list, we have Apocalypseburg Harley Quinn. Now, before making this video, I knew this minifigure was expensive, and I figured that everyone else did as well, so I wasn't really planning on putting it on this list. That is, until I realized just how expensive this minifigure has gotten. It now goes for around $200 to $250, which is absolutely insane. What sets this minifigure apart from all of the other Harley Quinns, of which there have been plenty, is that this is the only one based off of Margot Robbie's portrayal of the character in the DC films. Every part of the minifigure is exclusive. The white hair with blue and red tips has never been featured on another Harley Quinn, albeit the blue and pink of future Harley Quinn minifigures is actually more accurate to the on-screen version. The face with the small heart-shaped tattoo is spot on, and the torso and legs are extremely accurate as well. And in fact, I'm surprised that LEGO was willing to recreate such a risque version of the character to begin with, and I wonder if the character, being much more adult-centric, is the reason why it has never returned in any other set. The minifigure's release was weird, as it came in a set based off of the LEGO Movie 2, in which the character played little part, rather than a set based off of one of the DCEU films. But going back to the point I made earlier, I think this has to do with the mature themes of those movies. Birds of Prey was rated R, and LEGO has never made anything featuring the title Suicide Squad, as I'm sure it goes against their stated brand values. For example, other characters from the squad such as Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, and Killer Croc have only been released under the bigger LEGO Batman theme. So perhaps shoehorning Harley Quinn into this random set for the LEGO Movie 2 was LEGO's way of providing fans with this minifigure in a roundabout way, rather than actually acknowledging those films directly, which almost feels more more underhanded than anything, but maybe that's too much of a conspiracy. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If I were you, I'd save $240 and just go for this version that came out a couple years ago. It looks close enough and sells for around $10. And with that, we've come to the end of our list. If you have more suggestions for part 3, please tell me, as I do read your comments and consider them. If you have any stories about any of these minifigures, be sure to tell me those as well. And if you've already given suggestions, then stay tuned because they may end up in the next video. See you later. For number 2, we have Grima Wormtongue from the Lord of the Rings biggest set, the Tower of Orthanc. And the first time I get it, my phone goes off.